turn and greet one another.
Morning. Welcome to our gathering at the Winchester Unitarian Society. My name is Ivan Correa, and I will be your worship associate this morning. At the Winchester Unitarian Society, we embrace the wisdom of the past and the possibilities of the future. Today, we invite you to embark on a journey of rediscovery as we learn from our past and forge a path towards a brighter tomorrow. After worship, we are all invited to coffee and conversation in the Sims room located at the back of the sanctuary. As this is the first Sunday of the month, there will be cake to honor those who will be celebrating a birthday. And as summer is a quieter time, we'll be celebrating June, July, and August birthdays today. Come hungry and ready to sing. Many thanks to all those who volunteered at yesterday's Town Day fundraiser. While all the data is not yet in, it looks like we will clear at least $1,000. Next Sunday is our final worship service of the program year before we shift into the summer worship series. This will also be the last Sunday worship service led by our settled minister, the Reverend Heather Chanelis. When you come to worship, please bring 3 things: a flower, as we will be celebrating flower communion, a potluck dish to share, and a cutting from one of your houseplants. Reverend Heather is coordinating a plant exchange, giving us many plants from her own home, so once we part, we can continue growing together. The exchange will be part of a celebration of our shared ministry after worship. Look to highlights for more information. Now let us open our hearts and minds to the spirit of worship.
Here we have come into this sacred space, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration and consolation. Here we have come into this space bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing, however we are changed.
I now invite Cam and Maeve Somerville to come forward to light our chalice. Yesterday, our distant ancestors gathered around a flame to share their stories and find comfort. Tomorrow, our descendants will gather around a flame talking of a life we will never know. But for today, it is we who gather here around this flame, seeking, believing, and being together. Please rise in body in spirit to join us in singing the opening hymn, number 65 in the Gray Hymnal, the Sweet.
I would like to invite those who are young and young at heart to come forward for a story. Good morning. I have a question. How many of you remember what it was like to learn to walk? No? How about talk? Learning to talk. Do you remember learning to talk? Ryan, very funny, Ryan. So why do we remember learning these things? Because we're really young, right? We were really young. It was a long time ago in the past. Of course, even if our minds don't remember, our bodies do. We know our bodies remember because we're still able to do it, right? We don't wake up every morning having to learn it all over again. Now, some bodies had to learn different ways of moving or talking. Whatever way our bodies learned it. They worked hard, made mistakes, like falling down and recognizing that feeling of being off balance, and learned how to correct those mistakes, like recognizing what it feels like to be balanced and steady, right? Now, do you think we'd be able to move around without learning these lessons? Maybe. Will we just learn to log roll ourselves out of bed and down the stairs every morning? That might hurt. That might hurt a little bit. So this process of learning is something that humans, and most likely animals, all go through. Sometimes we forget. We forget that we had to learn how to do these things that we now take for granted, like moving around and communicating with each other. We also forget even bigger lessons. Sometimes we can get caught up in the idea that we have to focus on the future only, rather than looking back to remember what we've already learned. There is a saying that comes from the Akan tribe in Ghana, Africa. This saying is originally in the Twi language of those people. The saying is, "Se wo were fina wo sankofa a yankiri." I tried my best to Google that pronunciation for hours and couldn't find it. So I'm sorry if any native Twi speakers out there know I'm wrong. The saying is long, but it basically is telling us that it's important to look to the past to find lessons that will help us in the future. Essentially, go back in order to move forward. Yes, you should write that down. In the middle of the phrase are the words san, ko, and fa, san, ko, fa. San means return. Ko means go. And fa means look, seek, and take. Can everybody say san, ko, fa? So if there are lessons that we learned as a people in the past that have been forgotten in the present, the Akan people are saying that it's important to be able to look to our ancestors and what they have done and learned in order to help us move forward into the future. The Akan people who's saying this were famous for many things. One of those things is the symbols that they created to represent important ideas called adinkra. Can everybody say adinkra? For the idea of Sankofa, the adinkra symbol is a bird with feet firmly planted. Can you see this? Okay, hold on. With feet firmly planted in the present, facing forward. The bird's head is looking backward and holding an egg in its beak. The egg is a symbol of new opportunities and possibilities that the bird is retrieving from behind, from the past. So there's the picture of this mythical Sankofa bird. So even though our bodies remember how to move us forward from one place to another, sometimes it isn't easy to figure out the best way to move forward into our future. When we find ourselves wondering about the best move to make, let's think about this Sankofa bird. Let's remember that our ancestors, parents, teachers, and friends can help us make those choices, because we all have experiences that have helped us get to where we are. So when we don't know what to do, let's ask questions of our parents and teachers and friends. Let's ask what our ancestors did in similar situations. Let's take from those answers what feels wise and right to us and walk forward into our future. So, you can sit tight right here in front, or you can go back to your grown-ups. We're now going to thank our RE volunteers. I guess everybody's staying put. Our religious education motto here at WUS is growing the spirit. Fostering spiritual growth is hard, yet vital work. There are many people in this community who help our kids with this labor-intensive yet essential journey of spiritual growth. As Fred Rogers, beloved host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, once said, "Anyone who does anything to help a child in this life is a hero to me." We'd like to take a moment to acknowledge these heroes, and we ask you to join us in doing so.
First, we'd like to recognize our religious education teachers. These folks show up every Sunday to set up the classrooms. They teach the kids with stories and games while role modeling compassion and other UU values, break down the classrooms, and meet to discuss what went well and what we can improve. Many of them come back later that afternoon as youth leaders for our senior youth group, WSEG, and some even stick around to help lead the junior youth group, JOSEG, after that as well. And then they do it all again the following Sunday. Some of that work is physical, some intellectual, and all of it is work from the heart. When I call your name, please come up front and face the congregation. In our nursery, we have Celia Oslakovic and Ryan McDowell. In our Spirit Play 1 class, we have Naomi Magnoni, Milo Ippolito, and Diana Jaquinta. In our Spirit Play 2 class, Rebecca Vernalia, Riley Simpson, and Giorgio Cantoni. In our Neighboring Faiths class, Brenna Mayer and Hannah McWan. And last but not least, in any of our classes on any given Sunday, our floater, Larkin Gardinier. Let's give them all one more hearty round of applause for their hard work and dedication.
Okay, please stay right where you are. Of course, it takes a lot more hands to make our programs run each year. We'd like to list the many different ways that people contribute to our children and youth ministries throughout the year. As we read off these roles, if you've helped in some way, We'd like you to rise in body or spirit and stay standing, or raise your hand if you prefer or are watching from elsewhere. Some of you superstars can also keep raising multiple hands if you've done multiple things. If you taught OWL this year, please rise.
If you served on the Religious Education Committee this year, please rise.
I'm just going to say, let's hold our applause till the end, or we're never going to get through, okay? If you served on the Youth Advisory Committee this year, please rise.
If you served as an adult helper in the nursery this year, please rise.
If you helped with an RE service project this year, including Mitten Tree, Soup Jar Project, Bowling with Haitian Kids, and Canoe Trip and River Cleanup, please rise.
If you coordinated or helped with collective activities this year, like fall bulb and garlic planting, vacation Sundays, or celebration Sunday, please rise.
If you helped drive neighboring faiths kids to a visit this year, please rise.
If you prepared snack for Sunday morning classes this year, please rise.
If you made Spirit Place story materials this year, please rise.
If you helped organize or chaperone a service trip this year, please rise.
If you helped make a snack or meal for Jissy G or Wussy G this year, please rise.
If you helped co-lead a Just G or Wussy G meeting this year, please rise.
If you helped with a youth group event like grilling at the barbecue, lights for prom, contributing to fundraisers, and so forth, please rise. Finally, if you've helped in any way with RE or youth programs that we haven't already named, please rise. Everyone, please take a look around. This is the embodiment of what it means to be in community with one another. Everyone doing what they can for the betterment of not just our children, but everyone's children, and ultimately our society, our faith, and our world.
Please join us in applauding these teachers and these upstanding helpers. Without whom we would never be able to give our children the rich, varied experiences and downright fun that we have at WUS. Now please be seated. For everyone who rose up in body or spirit or raised their hands, and for everyone who applauded them, I have one final request. Please continue or begin. Some of you may be wondering, okay, but how do I get started? Well, I'm glad you asked. So each of you should have received a list with your orders of service this morning. If you didn't, there are more in the back next to the white basket, or there are some underneath our new tree you may have noticed in the Sims room. So you should have received that, or will receive it soon. It's an invitation, really, explaining the different ways someone might volunteer to help with our ministries to children and youth next year. This list corresponds with fruits on that big new tree you may have noticed back there. We call them fruits because any action any one of us takes to help bears fruit on the spirit tree. Some of these fruits are small, or low-hanging fruit, if you will, like little blueberries that are pretty easy. Some of them, like big watermelons, are a bit of a heavier lift, just like lifting a watermelon. They're all vital, and collectively, they will all contribute to the bounty that is our children, our youth, our faith, and our future. My hope is that every single person listening to me right now can at least do a blueberry. Please look at these opportunities to be a helper in the life of a child. Consider something that seems right for you, and at coffee hour, take one of those fruits down from the spirit tree, write your contact info on the back, and place it in the RE Harvest cornucopia, which is right next to the tree. Don't be afraid if the title of the job sounds like something you can't do. You can do it, I promise. We'll teach you. Nobody expects you to do anything by yourself. And if you have questions, please come find me or Brenna, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you. or email us if you have to dash after the service or watching from home and would like to get an electronic version of our fruits. Thank you all so much in advance for joining us to fulfill our vision of a community where everyone is included in co-creating our transformative children's ministries, youth ministries, and multi-generational ministries. And thank you once more to everyone who has already joined us so far. Now, I invite the grown-ups to sing the children off for religious education. The words are in your order of service.
We now come to the centering time in our service, settling in body, mind, and spirit. First through words and then ritual, kindling of the light, a time to light a candle of personal joy, sorrow, or concern, either at the candle table here in the sanctuary or at home. At that time, if you'd like a candle brought to you in the pews, please raise your hand. After we kindle the light, we'll be together in a time of shared silence, out of which we'll sing hymn number 15 in the gray hymnal, The Lone Wild Bird. Let us begin with a meditation by Teresa Honey Youngblood. They write, the 6-year-old and the 9-year-old, co-creators of our neighborhood garden this past spring and summer, survey the backyard plot after our first good hard frost. Ooh, there's a lot of dead stuff, says one. Guess we're done here, says the other. They make their way to the far corner where a drooping pumpkin vine has revealed a few small orange orbs that we missed in previous pickings. I stand over the daunting patch of blackened dahlias. The dying back shows evidence of our months of enthusiasm, but also horticultural ineptitude. Trowels and forks here and there, lost these past weeks, months, until the weeds that obscured them were laid low. Heaps of too tall flowers that grew leggy from inadequate sunshine, then flopped over into barely discernible paths. Twisted, odd-angled stems of cabbages and collards planted too shallow. Mats of green mush where crowded lettuces succumbed to the cold, bare soil. I see so much we could have done differently, so many mistakes made in haste, so many times I chose not to weed, so many corners cut, and no way to do them over until next spring. How many seasons does a gardener get? 10, 20, 30 maybe, depending on when they start. This finitude makes the regret over missed opportunities and poor choices all the keener. There is relief and remorse equally in my heart as the growing season comes to a close. Then the 9-year-old is at my side again, attempting mightily to whisper through excitement, "Look, look." And I look where they're pointing. I see a trio of goldfinches, annual migrants from more northern climes, hanging upside down to better reach the seeds in their graceful nodding. Brown heads of spent sunflowers. And just below that, on a bright Thistleia blossom, a monarch. Somehow, both flower and butterfly spared the cold snap. The insect is lingering over the precious late-season nectar, even as gray clouds gather overhead. I think for a moment how this weedy chaos, these beds of failed attempts, look to the wild things. It looks like food. It looks like shelter. Imperfect, yet earnestly done, with best efforts, tools on hand, and our collective wisdom, such as it was, it looks like a place of giving. Children and grown-ups and creation itself was tended here and fed. Let us now kindle the light. When WUS was seeking its next settled minister in 2015, the congregation created a welcome video for candidates to get a sense of this beautiful building and the vibrant community within. This was my first real glimpse into life here at the Winchester Unitarian Society. As I prepare to take my leave after serving for 9 years, I've returned to this video to better recall how our shared ministry began. The original video is about 9 minutes long, and this morning we'll play an abridged version with apologies to producers Don Daniel and Julie Kuhn for a few of my choppy edits. This short video includes some people who are no longer with us, children who are now much older, and a lot that remains the same. After the video, the choir will sing an anthem composed by John Kramer at the beginning of our shared ministry, We Create, a reminder that what happens throughout our shared ministry is our own creation, just as what happens next is shaped by all you and we bring to each moment. Let's watch. Please stay tuned for some technical edits. Steve Forcucci is on the case. When it's fixed, we'll start from the beginning.
Hi, I'm Pat Meany. This is my spouse, Betsy Bowles. She and I have been members of this congregation for 20 years. This sanctuary is so...
Welcome to Winchester Unitarian Society, a landmark on the edge of downtown Winchester. I'm Tyson Kamikawa, and I'm here to welcome you to our beautiful church. One of my roles here is as chair of our standing committee. Are you ready to take a look around? We are a welcoming congregation, and at our 2 entrances on Sundays, everyone is greeted by congregants on their way in. Straight through.
I'm John Russell. My wife Maggie and I have been members of this church for 45 years. That means we've attended more than 1,000 services in this lovely sanctuary. To my left and behind me are the Parkhurst organ chambers with their decorative outer pipes. The instrument was installed in 1928 and was of a kind typically used in silent movie theater. That music is just one of the many reasons that Maggie and I have continued to come to Sunday services for all those years.
Hi, I'm Pat Meany. This is my spouse, Betsy Bowles. She and I have been members of this congregation for 20 years. This sanctuary is so beautiful. I love the stained glass, and I really love the way the pews curve around. It really gives it such a warm, inviting feeling. You feel almost embraced when you step in. I also really like our tradition of the candle stand. Being able to have a moment of quiet contemplation and light a candle really adds to my sense of reverence and sacredness.
Hi, I'm Chuck Kuhn. I am co-chair of the building committee, and these are just a few of the 80 solar panels we installed in 2011. The rest are out of sight on the roof of the RE wing. Together, they provide about 40% of the total electricity needs of the building every year. The building committee is a very active, make it happen group. Frankly, we're all madly in love with this 116-year-old landmark building.
I'm Ryan Levering, and this is my wife Terrell and our 4-year-old Calvin.
Hello. Coming to church on Sundays is one of our most peaceful, relaxing times of the week. We bring our breakfast and enjoy it here in the parlor while listening to the choir rehearse. We were first drawn to Winchester Unitarian Society for the beautiful building, but stayed for the wonderful community that we found here.
Hi, I'm Donna Reed. I've been an active member of the Fellowship Committee for many years now. Welcome to our gourmet kitchen. Other than the sanctuary, this is my favorite space. We have a lot of fun here. Some years, we cook Thanksgiving dinner here for a big crowd. Just imagine the smell of turkeys roasting in these great ovens. When Occupy Boston was living in tents in downtown Boston, our youth and adults cooked big pots of carrot ginger soup and other hot meals to keep the occupiers warm. Our kitchen adjoins Metcalf Hall, a great function hall. We've held auctions and intergenerational dances and bazaars there, and we fill it with a crowd for our opening potlucks each September and again for the potluck before we slow down for the summer each June. In between those, there is Pie Sunday, our chili cook-off, pancake breakfasts, and spaghetti dinners. I live in a neighboring town. I come here because it's a warm and welcoming place.
I hope you were able to get a glimpse of what our church and this building mean to all of us. It's a historic place, and it's state-of-the-art comfortable and filled with love. There's room for everyone here, and room to welcome more. I hope you enjoyed some of the stories about our building, and there's plenty more where that came from. Thank you for watching from all of us at Winchester Unitarian Society.
"It is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten," is the translation of the proverb related to the Sankofa bird. This is a rather formal way of saying that it is good to reflect on the past and consider what wisdom this reflection offers. One little-known gem here in the Winchester Unitarian Society building is a whole room full of wisdom, the archives. As some have heard me observe before, there are good things and bad things about our archival collection. The good thing is that all the photos, sermon manuscripts, coal receipts, and other random documents and objects are organized by year, by subject, and by ministry. The bad thing is that they are organized by all these things at the same time. So if you're looking to learn more about social justice work in the 1960s, that information could be one of 3 places or misfiled someplace else. Should the congregation form a relationship with an archival intern in the future, we have so much to offer in terms of experience. I spent a lot of time in the archives during my first year of ministry with the Winchester Unitarian Society, 2015, as this was an anniversary year for the congregation, and it was there that I found this most unusual artifact. There are tags on the spoon telling the story. The first one simply says, "Keep church spoon old," with old in quotation marks. The other tag here reads, "Spoon used to serve beans at a standing committee supper in 1889 at the home of Mr. and Mrs. H.A. Emerson. Their home had been burglarized 2 days before the meeting and all their silver taken. The standing committee brought this spoon and a dozen silver teaspoons with 2 long tablespoons. This is perhaps the most interesting set of committee meeting minutes ever." But seriously, though, as I prepare to take my leave from serving the Winchester Unitarian Society, I thought it would serve us well to reflect on the past 9 years and what we have learned through our shared ministries and experiences. For those of you who are new to WUS, this may feel a little bit like reviewing someone's photos from a long vacation, but through it all, there are significant spiritual lessons that transcend this community and this near decade of journeying together. When I think back, I understand the past 9 years in 4 distinct chapters. If they had titles, they would all begin with the letter R. Rites of passage, resistance, resilience, and renewal. My very first worship service as your settled minister was in itself a rite of passage, but the importance was increased by the presence of a visiting delegation from our partner church in Marsh Washahe. These auspicious celebrations were good preparation for the celebration of the 150th anniversary. On the Sunday closest to the actual anniversary date, our pews were filled with those attending the performance of a cantata by Director of Music John Kramer, composed in honor of the occasion. The gold cross that was a regular fixture in the chancel for about the first 100 years of the congregation's history made a reappearance. Other anniversary events include a campaign to perform 150 acts of kindness as a community, a day of service, and the creation of an anthology of writings by all ministers who've served the Winchester Unitarian Society. There was also a festive dinner and presentation emceed by John Russell. In May of 2016, 1 year after being called, we held a service of installation to celebrate the covenant between minister and congregation. Then in October, we dedicated the meditation garden on the Main Street side of the building. This was a long-time dream made real through Dick Spencer's generosity and Julie Kuhn's hard work and creativity. Through their partnership, they created a memorial for Dick's wife, Janet, who had been an avid gardener, and transformed a scruffy side of the property into a beautiful place for peace and contemplation. Not long after we dedicated the meditation garden, many of us would need a place of sanctuary and a place of peace. On November 2nd, I posted this photo on social media with this caption. There's a movement to wear white today in honor of the suffragettes. I don't own a lot of white, so despite its ratty nature, I thought my woman's work t-shirt depicting female religious leaders in the image of the Last Supper would work. On my way to the polls. Of course, this was the assumption that we as a nation were on the cusp of electing our first woman president. As a clergy person, I am not in the business of endorsing candidates, but as a woman, I was so excited for this leap forward. And much of what I heard from her opponent suggested that he would actively thwart our values of inclusion, community building, reason, and equity. You know what happened next. That is why I'm calling this next chapter Resistance. This photo was taken at the Boston Women's March the day after Trump's inauguration. In January 2018, we held a special congregational meeting to vote on two important questions. Would the Winchester Unitarian Society become a sanctuary congregation, agreeing to provide protection from immigration enforcement for undocumented migrants? And will the WUS congregation intentionally commit to racial justice with posting a Black Lives Matter banner, part of this witness? Both proposals passed with near unanimous support, with us committing to raise the BLM banner and partner with another congregation actively providing sanctuary to a migrant. These processes were the result of much congregational discussion and significant work and effort by our Sanctuary Task Force and Black Lives Matter Task Force, with special recognition given to Marilyn Mullane of Sanctuary and Patty Shepard of BLM. Within days of our decision, First Parish in Bedford welcomed a migrant into Sanctuary. About 30 volunteers from Winchester Unitarian Society then underwent training and background checks to join First Parish Bedford in this ambitious effort to welcome, house, and protect a local woman named Maria. After more than a year, Maria earned a stay of deportation and was free to return to the community at large. As many know, our flag display with the American flag, the Progress Pride flag, and the Black Lives Matter banner has been subject to vandalism many, many times. As our Black Lives Matter banner is just one part of our witness and work for racial justice, our continued rehanging of the banner is symbolic of our commitment to the vision of racial equality, a good segue into the next chapter of resilience. The Winchester Unitarian Society community has experienced many losses in the past 9 years. Some of these losses are from longtime members drifting away for a number of reasons. Some of these losses are from members moving away. I think of Bob and Carol Ann Cronin, Cindy Stone and Dave Kronberg, and Don Landing and Mary Sadad, just to name a few. And some of these losses are through member deaths. If my count is accurate, at the conclusion of my ministry here, I will have officiated 59 member and non-member memorial services, with the service for Dennis Brett on June 15th to be my last. Some of those we memorialized were longtime pillars of the congregation, Dick Spencer, Paulette Taggart, and John Russell, just to name a few. This was also the place where hundreds of people gathered to remember Deanne Stryker, a young woman who died by homicide when attacked 1 block away in the Winchester Public Library, studying for medical school on a quiet Saturday morning. And this is where we remembered a recent youth group alumna, a brave, loving, and creative leader, Brenda Martino, whose long struggle with mental health ended through suicide. Again, there was no room to sit in the service. The sanctuary and many rooms were filled with love for Brenda and grief at her loss. We also needed resilience as everyone around the globe faced the COVID-19 pandemic. This photo was taken the morning of our very first virtual Zoom-based service, made possible by the work and know-how of our own James Pidex. Then, for the next 2 years, I sort of lost count, we stopped gathering in person. We found ways to connect, but none of it was easy, logistically or emotionally. 2 things are true for me about this pandemic time. Early on, crafters sprang into action to make masks before they were readily available. Without asking, many members of the congregation contributed to the minister's discretionary fund to ensure that our people would not suffer financially. We found ways to adapt and stay connected in the midst of all these challenges. And as the months went on, the time apart took its toll. and we lost 2 members to the disease, Madeline Smith and Linda Reck, and others contracted long COVID after an initial infection. Tensions rose around varying expectations for masking, distancing, and communication. Ryan Levering once asked aloud how we would emerge from this time. With hindsight, I believe the pandemic moved us to be our best selves, and we were also diminished by the impact of isolation, complications, and differing needs. But that brings us to our 4th chapter, renewal. There were silver linings from the long-term trauma of the pandemic. One is that we now live stream every Sunday and many special events. I am certain we would not have moved in this direction if not for our long-term need for virtual options and people discovering how remote access increases our ability to connect and serve. As reflected in this slide, slide 16, a motto emerged during the pandemic: connection, not perfection, reminding us of our vulnerability to technical glitches and the true goal of staying connected and forming new connections with one another. But this motto has taken on a deeper meaning above and beyond Zoom worship. I believe we've emerged from the pandemic with less emphasis on perfection and more on authentic community. If only more of the rest of life made this shift. Post-pandemic, we also experimented in worship. We moved the blessing of the animal service from summer to October, welcoming live animals into the sanctuary. This is a photo of me and my dog Armand at his first animal blessing. A colleague friend, recalling that preachers' kids are often called PKs, would describe him as a PK9. With more members from a Hindu background, we also began integrating Diwali and Holi into our seasonal celebrations. And another silver lining of the building being underused for a long time was that it gave Julie Kuhn and Frank Bernelli and others an opportunity to honor Frank's late wife, Judy, with an ambitious reconfiguration of the Mystic Valley side of the building. I took this photo shortly after the project's completion. The phrase that comes to mind when I look at it is the welcome path. And welcome we did. The past year and a half has been blessed by many new faces, many young faces, bringing new life, new hope, new energy into the congregation. I believe people have come because we have all learned throughout our times of trial and isolation that there's something essential about being together. Beyond the structures of work or school or a soccer team, we need one another in the good times, in the hard times, and all the moments in between. And speaking of moments, so much of what has made the past 9 years special to me are the simple moments of being together. I am now adding a bonus chapter called Random. For the people exploring the archives sometime in the future, I will save you some effort by sharing what I believe are the lessons of the past 9 years. When poignant moments come, honor them. In the words of Max Kutz, when love is felt or fear is known, when holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendar or consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known, but somehow new, mark the time. Respond with thought or prayer or smile or grief. Let nothing slip between the fingers of the mind, for all these are holy things, which we cannot and will not find again. When your values are under attack, defend and promote them. When you have thoughts that trials are never ending, don't believe them. And when you find a community of loving, complicated, brilliant, dedicated, generous, and joy-filled people, love them and open yourselves to let them love you too. May the good things we have shared never be forgotten. I've been getting a lot of standing ovations lately. This is a good way to welcome your next ministers. Just want to let you know. Thank you.
Our mission is to inspire each one of us to embrace a spirit of generosity in both our thoughts and actions. Through our annual pledges, we can fund vital programs, support our dedicated staff and leaders, and maintain the beauty of our sacred building. During our worship service, we have a cherished tradition of passing the plate. This act symbolizes our gratitude for the many blessings we have received. We warmly welcome you to join us in this journey of generosity as we strive to make a positive impact in our church, our community, and beyond. This morning, we share our gifts with Winchester Got Lunch, providing healthy lunch foods during the summer for students who may rely on subsidized school year lunches or who are nutritionally challenged due to unforeseen circumstances. Here are the different ways you can donate. Those in the sanctuary may give cash, checks, or donate electronically. Text to the number in your order of service, or visit our website under the giving page. If you're visiting for the first time, either in person or online, you are our guest. In-person attendees can find a physical visitor card in the pew racks in front of you. Please complete it and put it in the offering plate, the collection plate. Information about how to give online and how to complete the virtual visitor card will soon be shared with live stream attendees through text on your screen. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
It will
Those who wish to do so are invited to join in the unison affirmation. We gather not for ourselves alone, but to use our common power to build a beloved community within and beyond these walls. We create and reaffirm this covenant this day to make justice flourish, to practice compassion amidst difference, and to embody transformative love. Please join in singing hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey.
Forward as a bird flies, wisdom lifting our wings, strengthened by a shared past, pointing to the horizon. May we go forward in gratitude, in peace, and in joy.
read together the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. This service is ended, but our life of service continues. Let's continue the conversation in the Sims room. Don't forget to pick a fruit from the Spirit tree, add it to our cornucopia, then get some cake to celebrate our summer birthdays.